So it's July 18th at about 10:20 in the morning, and I'm sitting with Mike DeNoble in Kingston. So just to get started, could you talk a little bit about your job that you worked while you were at the bunker?
Well, sure. For most of my time, I had two basic jobs there, but most of the time it was to ensure that all the circuits were operational. And we had landline circuits and radio circuits, and they had crypto equipment on them. So we had to, if all of a sudden a circuit went out, then we had to basically diagnose the problem. And that's why it was called a facility control center, because you did control all the circuits and that. So basically, you had to determine whether there was a piece of equipment that was broken down, or a crypto setting lost, or it was a radio fault that the atmospheric conditions or something changed. Mm-hmm. So you would have to change frequencies on the radios and that. And I did do another job for a while in there where I was doing statistics for about 6 months and that in there too. But basically, I spent most of my time in the facility control center.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything that you were restricted from doing?
No, because I had the clearances to go everywhere. So I could go into Strad, and of course in the crypto, which was the highest security. And so I wasn't restricted. I never ever got involved in the emergency government side of it, but just, my clearance could have put me in there, but I was a corporal and I just didn't have the responsibility to work in the emergency government.
Okay. What were your first thoughts when you started working at the bunker? You got your posting?
Well, I went to CART from Trenton. And I guess when I walked up that tunnel, they showed me how to get the military policeman inside, and I saw that 3-foot thick door open and close. I don't know what I thought for a while. And then the second one opened to let you in the other side. So I guess, I wanted to go back to Trenton. And of course, like in the military when you're young, and I was single then too, and you're leaving all your friends. So it was, I didn't really want to be there at the start, but everything worked out great. I really enjoyed it there. The people, as you know, military people are great no matter where you go. So it was a happy family.
Did you live on site?
No, I lived in Rockcliffe. And on the base in Rockcliffe, I was single, and they had bus service for 3 shifts in those days. So I would just walk from my barracks down, catch the bus on the base, and it'd take me to CART, and then come back again. So I wouldn't want to, I spent some nights in there, but I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time in there, I don't think. So even though it was large, I've been in the other sites, and they're smaller, and CART, and I heard stories about people that would take that step that I just told you about, and when that door closed, they had to leave. So I don't know this for a fact, but the story was if they just got posted somewhere else, probably downtown Ottawa, because they just couldn't handle the fact that they were there and it was all underground sort of thing. So it didn't bother me because it was large enough. If it had been smaller, maybe, but maybe nowadays I might have although I was there a couple of years ago at the museum, so it didn't bother me then either, so it was okay. Yeah, it was, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. It was good.
What was the security like when you would arrive each day and go home?
The what, sorry?
Security?
It was tight in those days.
Yeah.
I asked the question about the different color cards, because we had a card that you had to wear in CARP at all times. And one was yellow and one was white. Well, I had a white one with my picture on it. And this is when you went in, you picked up your card at the guardhouse outside, and you would go in, and the other policeman, MP, would be there, and he would give you'd hand him this card that had been stamped, and he'd give you your pass. And what it meant was, I was told, which is true, is there were so many positions in that bunker. If there was a nuclear attack and they had to lock it up, and if you had a white one, you had a position or a bed, I guess, in the bunker. And if you had the yellow colored ones, you were outside. So that meant you're in trouble, I guess. I guess the joke was, when I asked the question was, But the difference in the white and the yellow was if the yellow, you're going to die. So that was, I was glad I had a white one then at that time, but that was the straight answer, because there's only so much room in there. And I mean, we had 5 shifts of people in there, 5 different shifts at all times. So actually there was quite a few days off, because you'd work so many days, time off with a 5-shift system. So you definitely couldn't have like that number of people in that bunker. I forget the exact number of bedrooms in there now, but there was only room for so many people. And then of course there was the Prime Minister's room and all these other VIP rooms in that. So you couldn't get near that. So so no, it was, it made you think, I guess, a bit. This was 1970, so there was still talk of the Cold War and that stuff going on then. So. But I had a tour. I mean, the first week or so you're in there, they show you, first of all, the film on how it's made by that A.D. Ross company, I think it was called, and how they started from scratch and how it was built. And then they took you a tour around to see the room where the Prime Minister, this would be the Prime Minister's bedroom, the war room, if you want to say, with a map of the world and all that stuff. So, I think I was 21 years old, so it was interesting at the time. Yeah.
Did you have any sense of anxiety, I guess, or concern about the possibility of a nuclear attack?
I would have to say no. Like in my time in school, of course, low school especially, we used to have the, practice getting down, I'm from Peterborough, it was my hometown, so I'd been brought up with that. But no, of course, when you're 21 years old, I don't think you're afraid of much. I was. So it didn't bother me. And it was never brought up. Like the subject was never there either. So I guess, it must have been, everybody else must have felt the same as I did. Mm-hmm. They did have lockups, by the way, there when, and I got involved in a couple of them when, I guess if your shift happened to be working when they had the lockup, they just practiced everything. Like someone from the government, Prime Minister never came, but someone from the government, maybe Deputy Prime Minister, and one of the head military people, the Vice Chief of Defense Staff and all that would come. And I think they lasted 24 hours or 36 hours. So this is why they always had to have fresh rations in the bunker, because it could be locked up tomorrow. So they kept fresh rations, meaning that even the married people would get a free meal on their shift because they had to keep on turning over the fresh rations. Now, they did have hard rations, if it extended. But I was never ever told how long we would have to stay there if there was the only thing we were told was that if there was a nuclear attack in Ottawa, at the government in Ottawa, we would be safe in the bunker. That's the only thing that we were told then. So maybe because of that, I felt safe when I was working anyways, but no, I don't think I was ever, I wasn't, of course, CARP was CARP, during the Cuban crisis and that, that was 61 or 2 or something, so it was after that. So. But yeah, no, and they, of course, they had the mess outside, so there was a social life, also there, even though it was, CARP's not, it's probably not the greatest place. I lived there the first year I was married, by the way. We were 21 years old, and we finally said, this is not for young people. There's nothing there. You had to drive into Ottawa for everything. And I was playing sports and then had ball and all that, and you had to drive into Ottawa all the time. So we finally, as you'll find out later, when my wife was there for 2 years, and then finally she got posted back downtown Ottawa. So we moved into, actually, Bayshore Shopping Centre. Opened up the year we moved into Bayshore. Because I understand Bayshore is not the greatest place to live right now. So, but it was then. Think of 1973. So it was then. It was kind of like nice apartments in those days. So, it was out of the way. That's for sure. A few people lived in CARP, rented houses and that there. But so you had to watch yourself. You had a social function because the drinking and driving was involved in those days too. You really had to watch it. Yep.
What kind of social functions?
Well, they used to have dances.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they'd have dances. And, I used to get a lot of people. It was all ranks, by the way, which was unusual for a military person because They have different messes. Like in Kingston here, there's the junior ranks mess, the senior NCO sergeants and warrant officers mess, and then the officers mess. Well, I mean, because they're so small in CARP, they just had one. So everybody from the lowest private to the CO, who would be a major, would go to this function with their spouses if they were married, So it was good. And there's always trouble, but it was never between rank. It wasn't a rank thing. It was always because of probably too much to drink or something. But there was never anybody saying pulling rank in the mess sort of thing, which was good. And the commanding officers, of course, have to realize that too, that they're everybody has to get along basically. And the shifts were anywhere from when I first got there, they had our head person in charge of the whole shift was a master warrant officer. And he's the second, there's only one rank higher in the non-commissioned side, so they had one on shift, the master warrant officer. And he was in charge of the section I was in, Facility Control Center, Strad, the whole, for that night. Basically, he was in charge of the bunker, everything in that circuit that night. So, and they were like friends. They were great. There was hardly any rank pull at all. It was a happy family in CARP. So I was there 5.5 years, and it was good. And then I came to Kingston, so back to a field unit, so where rank was. So that was good. Yeah.
What was the social, I mean, you've sort of touched on it a bit with the no rank pulling, but the social atmosphere in the bunker, and was it professional only or?
No, it was, no, we used to, like on a shift, when you work shifts, of course. So it's not super busy, like in the evenings and midnights. And I remember we used to play ping pong, we used to play cards and, and all that. As long as you did your job and, you were there. No, it was along well. And then we used to, we'd even socialize with your whole shift because you'd be off the same days. So, there might be 3 or 4 years with your spouses and that, or girlfriends, whatever, and get together on whatever night, Friday night if you happen to be off and stuff like that. So, no, it was good. And then, of course, they always had a ball team that they played the other bases and that. So you had everything that you had on a normal base. It's just that you worked in this bunker. So now a few of the people worked outside, as you know. There was when they moved the satellite site down, but you'd see these people in the mess. They were down the road from the mess, from where CARP is, and NATO. It was a NATO satellite. Actually, they worked for NATO too. These guys wore NATO badges and everything. So we used to say they got extra money, but I don't know whether they did or not. So it was social. It was great. It was a great atmosphere. Like I said, small, and I'd never really been on I still have. I've never been on a real small. That's the only time, and it's just a different atmosphere in those days. So, yep.
What about the other people who were working at the bunker? Did you know everyone who worked there?
Like the civilians that were there?
Civilians and other military as well.
Yeah, well, no, we got along well. We knew them all. And as I said, the mess was a big, that's where you'd meet a lot of people. The company, I think, was A.D. Ross. I could be wrong, but A.D. Ross, I think, was the company that built it. And then they controlled it. So there was always a couple of controllers on that controlled everything, because the military were involved in that. And, we got to know them all. In fact, when I went to visit there 2 years ago, there was a guy that I remember, I'd seen him before from the 70s. He went back there, a civilian. And of course, he didn't remember me, but he remembered my wife because she was the first female to get posted in there. And he said, "Oh yeah," and he said, "You're still better looking than your husband." And so, anyways, we got along well. The whole thing, it was a happy family. Yeah, I really was. I never ever saw, there was never a lot of trouble either, so it was pretty good. I guess the biggest problem was driving. Most of the people lived in. Now, some of them lived in Almont and Arnprior and that, and they had a long drive too coming that way. But the rest of it from Ottawa, sometimes I got a little, like after a midnight shift or something, and you got to go and you have to drive 25 miles or something like that. It wasn't too bad on the bus, but when I got, you just get on the bus. But other than that, it was good. I enjoyed it.
There's something else I was thinking of. Sorry, I should have written it down. Oh, yeah, the social atmosphere. What was the social atmosphere like? What was the? 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 You said that you moved into Carp.
The first year. They built these little, I think there was 3 apartments in this new building. We were the first ones to move into one of them, my wife and I, yeah.
And what was your feeling of the people in Carp? Like, what did they know about the bunker, and what were you allowed to say, or did they ever?
Well, they knew it was there. They had a barber that had been there for about 80 years, I think, or something. They had a mechanic that was there. I remember he used to go to the mess all the time. So I'd see him at that, because you can go, because now there's a bar now, not too far from Carp now, but there was no bars in Carp. So if they were members of the mess. And so you'd socialize with them. I found that, I was joking, and one of them talked to me and said he had lived there 35 years and he still was not considered part of Carp because people had lived there for families for centuries and they're farmers and all that. And they're different people. I mean, they're very close knit and all that too. And we see a lot of them at the mess, would come to the mess. But I think they thought when they saw my wife that she was a VON. The nurses, Victorian Order nurses, they thought that, there's no military women, so they thought they'd see her in her green. And the woman used to wear a boulder hat. She'll tell you that story too, but they thought that she was and she drove a little car too, which I think the VON nurses did too. They thought she was the local VON. So I don't think they knew, I think they knew that it was a Cold War, museum and all that, but there really wasn't much there. There was a little grocery store, barber shop, and a bank. And of course, I knew the guy that ran the grocery store too, and he was a member of the Mets too. So it was an IGA or something like that, or food or something like that. And I think they were probably disappointed when they closed it. First of all, for business, because the garage would, guys would just drop their car because it was not too far from, it was right before you go up the hill with the car. That was right on that corner there. There was a garage shell station there. So you could drop your car off there, in the morning and that. So, I think and of course the barber shop, when I was there in the 70s, nobody else got a haircut but the military. If you remember the long hair that was out then. So Cliff was his name, I remember, and he had some stories to tell down there. So, it was good.
What about your family? What were you sort of allowed to tell them about your work at the bunker? What did they know about the bunker already?
Just that it was a bunker that, I think I explained that it was across Canada. They didn't know that, and it was built in the case of a nuclear attack. That was it. That was all they knew. Yeah, that was all. I told them. I don't know whether they came to Carp. I guess they came to Carp. Yeah, I probably brought them to the mess or something at Carp, but yeah, that's I didn't have the knowledge of a lot of at my level, at that level. So as to what was going on, what the plans were, stuff like that. So I knew about the emergency radios and that because they had to test them every once in a while, and I knew what they were for. Because our transmitter site was at Richardson, which was another small bunker, by the way. Yeah. And with all these great big transmitters in there. So if something ever happened, they had an emergency backup to that too. So, but in those days, some of the transmitters were probably from here to that. So, as I said, nowadays you get one like that and then do the same thing. Hey, but and there was shift work out there too. Because we used to be able to change frequency on our transmitter. We couldn't do it, and where I was in Carp, you had to send it was like a teletype circuit to the transmitter site. And the technician there would do this for you and change that. So, yeah. It was another happy family, they got together. You'd see them once in a while, the guys out there, but they mostly lived around Perth and in those areas. I don't know where I think Richardson, I was only there once. I think it's between maybe Carp and Perth. Richardson's a small little town, probably not even as big as Carp, but that's where it was. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And did you ever think about or have a reaction to the rule that if there was a nuclear attack, you couldn't bring anyone else in, like your family or your wife when you got married?
Yeah, I think I'd be in there, and of course your family, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they could be gone for all you know. But, I was in the military, and that's what you're trained for, I guess. It's like the poor guys now in Afghanistan. I mean, they haven't been to war. We haven't been to war since Korea. I mean, these guys are over there at war. So it's not that we're at war at CARP, but you could have been in the lockup, and you don't know what's going to happen. During the FLQ crisis, by the way, I don't know whether you know the story, but there was a bomb let off downtown at one of the communication centers, and a civilian lady was killed. Okay. And in fact, I just talked to the Master Corporal here about 3 days ago who was injured in the bomb. He was in charge of the shift that night. And anyways, so of course they're worried about CARP. Now these people are not going to drop an atomic bomb or a nuclear weapon. So what they were worried about at CARP was the air intake on the bunker. That would be the only thing that they could, terrorists and that could do. So we did guard duty up by the air vents up top. So the midnight shift, and as soon as it was dark, because the military police were down there and that little, before you go into the, they were there. So you would be up with a radio up at I don't think we had live ammunition, but we had a radio, and we had to work. I would do if I was on midnights, I might have a shift from 1 to 2, and then 6 to 7 in the morning would be my shift, and I had to walk around and just to make sure that, and if something happened, I don't know whether I was supposed to throw my radio at them or not, but anyways, you're supposed to radio to the military police. But it was just a safety net because of that, what had happened downtown. A lot of people don't remember that, but I mean, well, you wouldn't because you weren't born then. But I don't know whether it's got to be recorded in some. It was in the paper. I mean, the Ottawa paper and all that. But yeah, civilian lady, teletype operator, was killed downtown in a bomb. So after that, they started. That was before October. October was when the Prime Minister sent the troops into Quebec. That was after the kidnapping. But yeah, so I don't know how long we had to do it for, but it would be the evening and midnight shifts because it was dark, and they just wanted you to walk around. It's quite boring walking out there in the dark. Probably the first night or second night too, maybe I might have been a little scared, up there. But after that, I used to smoke in those days, so you'd be able to smoke out there. So, anyway, but yeah, they were worried.
Just generally speaking, I don't know if you do, but do you have any stories that you like to tell about when you worked at the bunker?
Well, I think that main one was, about the when the FLQ crisis was going on. That was the only really thing that really happened. And as I told you, the lockups that we had, of course, you didn't know that there was a lockup happening. So, all of a sudden you could go to shift. And now what they did was, the one time I remember, I was married at the time, one of the fellows that was coming in knew about it, and my wife had packed something for me. Because otherwise, but I mean, I don't know, I forget the number of days rations and that you had. So I was never worried about that. And actually, as a corporal, it was great to see the Minister of National Defense in the bunker, or some 3-star general or something. Hey, look, there's so-and-so over there. Look at that. All you'd seen is a picture of him before. But no, it was, as I said before, it was a great 5 years. We had a lot of fun mingling with the different ranks at the mess. And when they posted my wife, after they posted her out, they started posting women in. And then it just, in those days, didn't matter after that whether you're male or female and that. But I was not in there when there used to be the guys living in the bunker. And I was glad that, you could stay in there. And I think the mess, the bar used to be inside too. So you could, you wouldn't have to go out. Well, you'd never get tan, that side. But, and there was always lots of food in there too. It was good.
Do you feel that that the Cold War had any effect on your day-to-day life working at the bunker? Sort of any specific news stories or events or that kind of thing?
No, it didn't. The biggest event that happened, I would have to say, when I was in CARP, was when Paul Henderson scored the goal to beat the Russians. They had it piped out through the bunker, and I was working when he scored, and everybody just went nuts. It was, and I wasn't downtown Ottawa, but they said the horns were tooting and all that stuff. So if that's the only significant event that happened, then obviously I had a happy time in Carp and it was very enjoyable. It really was. Yeah. And of course, close to Ottawa when I lived in Ottawa, and I love Ottawa too. So it was good.
During that game, what sort of hype surrounded? I mean, I wasn't there.
No, I know. I know.
Me, but sort of hype was around the Soviet participation and the series itself.
Oh, sure it was. I mean, you know, we say nowadays if like Canada and the United States are in the finals, it's the Americans, but there was never like the feeling of when they played the Russians. They just. Especially when they got whomped a couple of games. Like everybody thought we were the best in the world. Nobody could touch the Canadians. And it was just near the end when everybody was saying, well, yeah, our guys are making $1 million a year and the other guys are doing. And then it was, even to this day, people my age or older would still don't feel the same about other countries as they do when they're playing the Russians. It's just, it was amazing. Well, you just couldn't believe it when with so many seconds left in the game. There's probably circuits that were out that never got fixed for a while because everybody was so happy and that it was great. So yeah, and of course, you know, that was the Soviet Union technically. It's not. I don't. They broke up now, but yeah, I never ever. It never had an effect on me. Working there or anything like that. So, as I said, when you're 21, it just, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then I felt safe all the time on that. So.
Good. Do you remember there being any fears about or activities regarding communism during the period?
No. No, nothing there. As I said, I never remember even discussing it. In the 70s anyways. You know, maybe before or something like that it would have, but yeah, not in my time anyways, the way that I was there.
Mm-hmm. Just a couple
more.
What or how did you react when you first heard about the fall of the Berlin Wall?
I was happy. Yeah, I mean, the Germans are, you know, they're nice people. I mean, they fought wars, but they were fighting for, you know, just their country. We didn't like them, blah blah blah, the decisions, but it was the politicians that were. They were just soldiers like we were, over there fighting for our country. And you know, when you think of the families and that were all separated, and they're happy people. I've never been stationed in Germany because my wife and I had a child, and they wouldn't post the both of us over there because if something had happened, who would have taken looked after the child? Because we're both filling positions that are key positions. But I was there quite a few times on either business, on duty, or on holidays from the Middle East. We used to travel over to Germany, and you get to know them. I mean, I don't know whether you're German or not, but they're great people. They're great people, and I think it just, you know, there's people. You read the paper now. There's comments about the breakup of the Soviet Union. Maybe they were better off before. You see all these countries that but no, I was really. I think it was time, you know, to do that. I never saw it, by the way. I've never been that part of Germany. But to look at an economy that was so great on the West Germany, and yet their relatives, blah, 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 across that wall in East Germany, I mean, it's terrible. So you got to go back to, maybe the Americans shouldn't have let them have it. I don't know. That's another story, right? So, no, I was happy for it. I really was. Yeah.
Just one last one.
Yep.
Why do you think it's important to remember the Cold War and maybe your experiences specifically?
Well, think about that for a minute. I think at my level, I just would not want to see the world come as close as it did a couple of times to an all-out war again. I guess I'm afraid of some of the countries now that have nuclear weapons. And I think we all know who they are. And I'm also afraid of terrorists getting involved in getting the weapons. I think that's my biggest fear. I don't know what, the politicians think, but I mean, look at what they did in 9/11. They can do that. They can get weapons. I mean, I just, do I think the Americans should be as strong as they are? Sometimes I think, mind your own business, but then I don't know that for a fact. I mean, same as Canada. There's a lot of people against the Afghanistan war that we shouldn't have gone. I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm just afraid of the nuclear weapons and that again. My children and my grandchildren and stuff like that, that have to live with that. And more countries are getting them. I still don't know how they can say that this country can have them and that country can't have them. I don't grasp that yet. But yeah, really, I'm just afraid of a nuclear war. I think some of the kids today should maybe go back and take some of the things that I did when I was young, when it was, the crisis was going on and all that stuff. Because I don't know what I think Remembrance Day is coming back a lot better, by the way, since Afghanistan started in Canada. We're this place is just hopping here in Remembrance Day. And our education program, the schools want to come in here, and we have an education coordinator here, and they want all that. And the people are you're now proud to wear your uniform, and the people are supporting you downtown and that. So they want soldiers to go into the schools now to talk, to the classrooms and that. So which is good. I think that's good. So maybe the war in Afghanistan, if it didn't help over there a lot, which they say it did, but it'll help us think more about what could happen. Like I said, these fellas for 45 years were training using blanks. I mean, we trained for blanks, and we went to Valcartier, we went to Petawawa and all these places, and these people are really at war over there, those Canadian soldiers. So that's why so many of them are coming back with problems. Because the young people today, I mean, they're seeing death and all that, and haven't seen that in years, So, and there was people in the Second World War that came back with problems too. A lot of alcoholics, a lot of blah blah. Because I guess the stories I were told, you might get 2 days or 1 day out of every 2 months, or you'd have a drink, so you just, and so. But I mean, there isn't probably a unit in the forces today that doesn't have someone on post-traumatic from over there. I mean, I got one of the ladies that works in the museum here, her husband, terrible. And it's not like a broken arm that you can set it in that. So anyways, yeah, that's, so as you see, it wasn't that, I had a great time at CARP, but there's not a lot of significant things happen in that, so, yeah.